Hello, and welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be inside my workroom, specifically on the workbench inside of my airbrush booth. And that is because in this video, I'm going to show you guys how I mass produce weathering effects for HO scale Bethgons. This weathering process takes about 6 steps with an optional 7th step at the end. Depending on the era you model or how lightly you want these to be weathered, some of these steps might not be necessary. I know 6 steps might feel like a lot, but they go by quickly with minimum effort and the results look great. So there's nothing to it but to do it. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm actually going to weather all 6 of these Walther's Bethgons, basically just to double down on the fact that this is a method to mass produce weathering. These models are still pretty good quality even though they're about 2 decades old at this point. Some good molded on detail to the body, crisp paint, still good models, and they look excellent once they're weathered. For weathering these, I try to use a minimal amount of materials, which includes a hobby grade flat coat, Tamiya flat black and flat brown, which is mixed together with 70% isopropyl alcohol, and then Rust-Oleum spray paint in a super flat earth brown color for the wheels and trucks. And then I bought this tool from eBay. It's 3D printed, and basically it's just a template for weathering your wheel sets. It comes with these holders for 36 and 33 inch wheel sets. It works okay, it does the job. More on that later in this video. But now let's go ahead and get started weathering these Bethgons. Step 1 is to apply the flat coat onto the model. I do 3 passes on each side, wait a few minutes to let it tack up, and then an additional 2 passes on each side. This ensures that the model is fully covered and is prepped and ready for paint to be applied, because paint will go on a lot easier to the flat coat than directly to the plastic of the model. Step 2 is to mix together the 2 colors of Tamiya paint with the isopropyl alcohol. First, I'll start by pouring in a fair amount of flat black, followed by a little bit of flat brown. I'll then add in the isopropyl alcohol. The ratio in the mixture should be about 80 to 90% isopropyl alcohol to the paint. Any more than that, and then when you start to apply the paint, it's pretty runny and won't apply correctly to the model. Mixing these 2 colors together will yield sort of an earthy black color. What I'm going for is similar to the prototype, where when you see weathering on Bethgons, it's not totally black, there's a bit of an earthy tone to the color of their weathering. The mixture does look pretty dark here, but when it's applied to the model, you can kind of see that earthy black tone come alive. Step 3 is probably the most crucial step to this process, as this is when you first apply the paint to the model. There's really no perfect way of doing this, which is kind of the beauty in this process. Just make sure that you don't have the airbrush on open throttle and lightly apply it to the model and just go back and forth side to side until you get a reasonable result for how heavily you want these to be weathered. Typically, I will kind of coat the whole thing in a light layer, and then as I work my way down from top to bottom of the model, I'll progressively add more paint to the bottom. As on the prototype, the bottom of these are a bit more weathered because they're closer to the ground and the wheels. Step number 4 is to apply the FRA safety striping. For this, I use the Smokebox Graphics reflective safety stripes. There's really not a whole lot to this step. I just gently apply them to the model, and I try to make them fairly straight, but if they're not 100% straight, I don't really bother, because in real life on the prototype, a lot of times the safety striping isn't straight either. I mentioned in the intro some steps might not be necessary, and this is one of those steps because not everyone is going to model modern with the FRA safety striping, so you might only need a light weathering job like in step 3 and no need for the safety stripes. I wouldn't call this a step necessarily, I just accidentally did this out of order when I was weathering these, but I will flat coat the bottom, let it dry, and then hit it with the airbrush again. Since this is on the bottom, I don't need to be particular with how I spray the paint onto the model, just to get a kind of general look of grime on the underbody. Ideally, the flat coat would go with step 1, and then the weathering would go with step 3. The fifth and final step of this process is to weather the wheels and trucks. For this, I use the Rust-Oleum spray paint in the flat earth brown color and give it about 2 to 3 coats at first on each side. Wait a few minutes for the paint to dry slightly, and then give it another 2 coats just for extra insurance that the trucks are properly covered. This step goes by pretty fast because the spray paint dries fairly quick, and I can weather all 12 of these trucks for the 6-pack in about 10 minutes. Weathering the wheels is the exact same process as the trucks. I just do a couple passes with the spray paint on each side, let it dry a little bit, and then do a few more passes just for the extra insurance, especially with the wheels because they're metal and super shiny, so you want that extra coating to get rid of the shine. Like I said earlier in this video, this device for painting wheel sets works okay. Overall, I think it's a good tool to quickly get the job done, but I'm not sure if it's just because it's 3D printed or the spray paint gets into every single crevice. But when you take the wheels out of this, there is some additional cleaning, which adds a bottleneck to the process because it's not a super quick process to clean the wheels. And additionally, I have to clean the point on each end of the wheels that goes into the truck. It will create a lot of friction and drag inside of the truck, causing the car to lose its ability to be free rolling. I did realize you can probably just put a piece of foam on the tip of the wheel to protect it from the spray paint. Overall, this is a very fast and easy process, and the results look excellent. The sixth and final step of this process is to add the second layer of weathering over the model. If you don't want to weather the model any further, this step is not necessary. I didn't add the safety striping first because I didn't want to coat it with all the layers of grime, and I still wanted them to be fairly visible. I also added the wheels and trucks to this step because I wanted an additional layer of grime over them as well. These steps can be moved around depending what look you're after. You could apply the safety striping first and then all of the layers of grime over it if you want a heavily weathered model. The point I'm trying to get at with this video is with an airbrush, you have all sorts of flexibility to weather the models however you want, and the results I think look really great because you have a ton of control with how lightly or heavily you want your models to be weathered. One thing I would like to point out about the paint mixture is when it's applied, since it's so diluted with isopropyl alcohol, it will appear to be darker when you apply it, but the isopropyl alcohol will evaporate away, leaving the color of the paint. You can expedite this by just blowing air out of the airbrush, and it will dry the IPA on the model quickly, leaving the color behind. The optional 7th step is to flat coat the model. This is to seal in all of the weathering effects and keep it from getting scratched. Since everything is sealed in, if you want to add more weathering effects, you can do so without ruining what you've done before. Or you don't even have to add it at all. Just from general handling of these models, they can accumulate scratches as well, which actually looks a little prototypical like shown here, because on the prototype you'll see scratches up and down them frequently, probably from the rotary dumper, but it actually adds a nice effect if they accidentally get scratched while being handled. Now the weathering process is complete. I'm going to roll through a few final shots to show off the final product, and then give a few final thoughts on this process. I did not weather the inside of these because I figured down the road I will put a coal load in them, and also using an airbrush to weather the inside, I don't think it would look accurate. Maybe some weathering powders, perhaps that's for a different video, but that was not part of this process. Like I said in the intro, this weathering process goes by fairly quickly, maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours to do every single step, including cleaning the wheels and adding the FRA safety striping. The matter of the fact is weathering is a little time consuming no matter how you spin it, especially if you want good results. And I think putting in the time for this method is well worth the hour and a half to 2 hours, especially since you can weather an entire 6-pack of cars in that time. And my one last final note is I want to thank everyone for sticking to the end and watching this video. I truly appreciate it, and I will see all of you in the next one.